Britain is on the road to a transport revolution. A long drive in which planners' dreams turn into concrete on such spectacular new routes as this M6 motorway viaduct spanning road, river, rail and canal at Gathurst in Lancashire. And this in the south, where 2 miles of columns like these will carry the M4 over part of the Great West Road to London Airport and speed journeys for air travellers as well as road users. Compared with the rest of Europe, we're late starters, but Britain today has 1,000 miles of motorways either built or planned, part of a £100 million a year programme needed to keep up with a hurrying world for a growing population that's both busier and better off. By 1970, it's likely that the cars on Britain's roads will have doubled to some 13 million, and by 1980, there'll be between 16 and 18 million. For years, Britain has been handicapped by a road system geared to a bygone age, with traffic jammed at times to a standstill on roads that were never made to take so many family cars. A system where half the traffic has been carried on 6% of the roads, where awkward loads like this were never bargained for. A system completely inadequate for a nation which must live by trade with the rest of the world. And by 1980, our roads will have to take twice as many goods as are sent today. And our ports, out of date. For the first time this century, they've now been examined to see what's needed to make them efficient. On the railways, the same story. An archaic system laid down by cheap labour in the age of Victoria, forming what's been called the most extravagant railway system in the world. But now, modernisation and efficient new marshalling yards like this at Carlisle, one of the most advanced in Europe. Setting the railways on the right lines means a revolution in itself. In London alone, there are 12 mainline stations against 2 in a comparable city, New York. On the other hand, the southern region of British Railways alone carries more passengers than all the major railways of America and Canada put together, and they nearly all want to travel at the same time. 3/4 of them travel in 3 peak hours, and 1/4 in the rest of each day. 95% of the national traffic has been carried on half the network, and some 1,500 stations have been taking only 1% of the railway's income. Under the Beeching plan for hauling the railways into modern times, the idea is to stop losing money on services that aren't used and to concentrate on those that are needed. Today, a better deal for those who pay the fares, a faster, smoother ride with the emphasis on passenger comfort. This is the Midland Pullman, one of the expresses that is helping to give the railways their new image. It's powered by 2 1,000 horsepower engines and does the London to Manchester run through Derbyshire in 3 hours 10 minutes. It's a train with services like those of a top hotel, catering for the international businessman as well as the ordinary passenger. You can even wine and dine on credit. And instead of having to peer out of the windows to know where you are, the conductor tells you over the loudspeaker. On many routes, the new diesels save 10 to 15 minutes in the hour, and more passengers are getting used to the idea of comfort in air-conditioned carriages with adjustable seats, double-glazed windows, and even Venetian blinds. And they're out to win freight from the overworked roads. Already, more than 1,000 diesel-hauled goods expresses are operating between Britain's main industrial centres. Trains like the Condor, non-stop every night between London and Glasgow in less than 10 hours. It's from this headquarters in South London that the revolution in Britain's transport, road, rail and ports, is planned, where the long-range forecasters of future conditions must come to grips with the problems of the 1970s and 1980s to keep a nation on the move. Are we getting full value for the hundreds of millions of pounds of public money now being poured into transport? Is the balance right between roads and railways and coastal shipping? The section of the Birmingham-Penrith motorway, being opened here, cost £750,000 a mile to build. It takes the load from perhaps the worst stretch of trunk road in Britain, a road passing for more than half its length through built-up areas. Carrying the M6 motorway over the River Mersey and the Manchester Ship Canal is the £5 million Thelwall Bridge, the biggest yet built on the motorways, more than 3/4 of a mile long with 36 spans. Running north from Penrith, the M6 will skirt Carlisle, where the railways have moved into the electronic age with those new marshalling yards. It's all part of a plan to cut waste and delays, with a few yards like this taking over from clusters of older, badly sited yards. By pressing a button in the control tower, the operator sets up controls for the assembly of an entire train even before shunting begins. And who'd have expected the day would come when engine drivers would have their own two-way radios. With aids like this, it's possible to sort a train of 50 wagons in 7 minutes, or deal with 250 trains a day. It may look like a schoolboy's model railway, and the controls, even the braking, seem just as simple. But each of those wagons is weighed in tons. In the race to speed freight, the railways are also going in for radar, tape recorders, and closed-circuit television. Another idea, merry-go-round coal trains moving continually between pitheads and power stations, saving time on turnaround and on loading and unloading. New methods of handling, new wagons like these, styled for use on the continent, carrying goods in and out of Britain. They're part of the transport revolution that's using new ideas and new techniques on a scale undreamed of even a short time ago. Here at Cliff in Kent, cement is measured by the ton as it's loaded into special bulk wagons. 30 wagons to the train and a total load of around 800 tons. Destination, Scotland. When emptied, the wagons are worked straight back to Kent, a round trip of 900 miles taking 44 hours. As Britain's trade grows over the years and more goods must be moved more efficiently, a third branch of the transport network will have to come up with the times. Britain's ports. Here at Liverpool is one of the few major developments of recent times, the Langton Canada Lock, a £20 million new entrance setting the pattern of things to come. But the fact is that Rotterdam has more deep water berths for large cargo ships than the whole of Britain. Today, some 15 ports handle nearly 3/4 of the nation's foreign trade and coastal shipping, and more concentration is needed. High on the list for development is Southampton, home of those prestige liners of the Atlantic, the Queens, and in the eyes of the planners, a natural tradesman's entrance into Britain. But new docks take years to build, and time is vital. So it is with the motorways. The excavations alone are a vast project. On one 26-mile stretch of the M6, some 6 million tons of earth had to be moved, and another 750,000 tons of filling brought in to complete the roadside banking. The motorways have led to better road-making equipment, so that near the end of one motorway contract, 4 miles of single carriageway were being surfaced every week. But roads must first be planned and the land bought. It'll be several years before work can even start on the last 2 miles of the M1 motorway into London. But here, the surveys, the public inquiries, the compulsory purchase orders are things of the past. Those who didn't want to move for any motorway have gone. The men who travel with the motorways, the road builders who must often work miles from anywhere, have come, and with their families. For these people, home is where the motorways take them, in a caravan on the edge of tomorrow. Don't talk to the road makers of the 60s about Britain being a tight little island, already built out to its limits. Often they have to carve a way through rough country, taking hills and valleys and rivers in their stride. Here, on the heads of the Valley Road in South Wales, where conditions are among the hardest in Britain, they're spanning a gorge. For those artists of transport engineering, the bridge builders, it's an age of opportunity. To bring variety and interest to the motorway bridges, they're encouraged to use imagination and artistry, as well as new materials. On this length of the M6, 81 bridges, 3 miles of them. Bridges with facings in concrete, brickwork and masonry. Steel bridges in a range of colours. And here, the road shoulders have been coloured to contrast with the traffic lanes. Bridges can be things of beauty or eyesores, so designs are first checked by the Royal Fine Art Commission. Is there another Brunel among today's bridge builders? Another like the genius whose Clifton Suspension Bridge over the Avon at Bristol was built just 100 years ago? If there is, this is the age that will make him famous. The new and exciting Forth Bridge, a 1.5 mile long suspension bridge whose main span of 3,300 feet will be the 4th longest in the world. And here, the bridge over the Medway, whose builders have created a new record. They've made the world's longest cantilever span in pre-stressed concrete, 500 feet. Such achievements cost more than money. There's a toll in human life among those who work to make the transport revolution a reality. There are some accidents that can't be avoided. Far from the exotic and dangerous world of the bridge builders, another group are at work, the tunnellers. Nearly 30 years after the world's longest road tunnel was opened under the Mersey, they've burrowed this road under the Thames, linking Kent and Essex between Dartford and Purfleet. The cost, £11 million. The saving, in time and temper, immeasurable. For those behind the transport revolution who have to look 10, 20 years ahead, one of the biggest problems is the traffic jam. It means not only new roads, but replanned routes through the hearts of our car-congested cities. And the instant remedy? One-way traffic, with routes changed to protect cities from self-strangulation. The motorist who once knew London like the back of his hand is having to learn new ways. And he'll have to get used to new traffic signs and symbols. It's the continental look for the future. Style that's both up-to-date and clear. Keeping traffic moving in an age of change can involve fast work at the crossroads. To make room for the rebuilding of the underground station below, this steel umbrella had to be placed over Oxford Circus during one August bank holiday weekend. It's a 600-ton steel bridge with 4 approach ramps, a battleship deck with a road surface on top, as it's been called. "65 hours later, the morning after bank holiday, the temporary circus, with a 3-year job to do, was open to traffic after a round-the-clock operation. And now, another part of the 1,000-mile motorway network of the Master Plan for Britain's roads is ready for traffic. It's a section of the M2 between London and Dover, the motorway that gives continental visitors their first impression of the changes on Britain's roads. When the motorways are completed, every 25 miles of road will have its own service area where motorists can pause to refuel their cars and themselves, and the refreshment is strictly non-alcoholic. This mosaic shows the Medway area and the M2. Each service area is due to have self-service snack bars, lorry drivers' pull-ins, and a luxury restaurant. And already there's a motorway vogue in leisure pursuits among those who like to dine out while watching the cars go by. The pattern of tomorrow's transport is already taking shape. Long-distance coach services are on the increase, and the motorways have their own expresses travelling at 70 miles an hour between the major cities. The railways, too, are cutting their times and are all out to win a growing slice of the goods carried between the main industrial centres. Private motoring is also moving into a new era, the age of the two-car family. It's a challenge to the road planners who have to bargain for around 18 million cars on our roads within the next 20 years. Already, for the first time, 1 million new cars are coming onto the home market in 1 year. More than 500,000 more are being sold abroad every year as part of a growing trade that will involve the movement of twice as many goods in 1980 as are carried in and out of Britain today. The revolution in transport, the new look for our roads, railways and ports, is coming none too soon if Britain is to move with the tide of progress. This is the measure of what a coordinated transport system means to Britain.